That's yours.
Is it live stream?
No.
I'm pretty sure he started it.
We're gonna be like
That's really awesome start.
1 million subscribers.
Hey, y'all hit that like button, you know what I'm saying? man?
Like and subscribe, hit the notification button right
Hey,
here.
for comments.
Like and subscribe.
Come buy our merch.
Turn to the church where everybody
Get
is
some
welcome.
TCC merch, that's right.
Hey, bro, everybody here's my cousin, man.
This is our mascot.
This is our mascot. You like potato chips?
I'm going to smack you.
Hey, I'm the base here.
You'll see him again.
You'll see Josh.
You shouldn't be looking so.
So your announcements are pretty simple. We had to, for now, postpone the Mother Son Dance. I'm hoping we still get to do it. I don't know if we will or not, but anyway, hopefully we will. But we had to postpone it because, like, coming to church is one thing, but gathering more than 10 people together at something other than church is a different thing. Not to mention that a bunch of the people said they weren't coming because they're not supposed to be in a group of 10 or more, which makes sense. So we're gonna follow that. That's why we only have 8 people in here right now. So we meet the threshold of below 10 or whatever. Other than that, Fuge said they weren't canceling yet, and so we're still good on that. As far as the survey goes, continue going to Fuge 1.
I really want to go to Fuge.
And then take a mission trip and do our own camp. We're like tied for second.
Really?
And so, you know, it was close either way. It could have gone either way. It was pretty split. And so we talked about stuff we can try to figure out. Anyway, we're gonna figure that part of it out. Ended up getting 38 responses on that. So if y'all didn't get a chance to do it, if y'all could go on and do it, I'd appreciate it. It's still up. It's still open. I didn't close it out. But like if everybody's here, we got 75 people in youth group. So I feel like we can probably get more than 38 responses.
Yeah, because I sent you back a response before you even put up the actual thing.
And that's why I sent the next message that said, please don't send me a response. Click the link, it's coming out at 1:30 or whatever I said.
As soon as you release
Oh, I got 3 responses. I picked number 2. I didn't read the message. Said there's gonna be a link for a survey.
I didn't read that.
Yeah, I picked a few.
I know.
Not the first one, it didn't. It just said pick.
But he said that he's gonna.
Anyway, so as of right now, that's what they're saying. For you guys who are like worried about the travel part of it, they did say that, you know, we're doing the fun thing at the end this time. But we'll be done at like 6:30 with that. And so theoretically, we would leave by 7:30 or 8 o'clock that night, which would put us back here at 4 o'clock in the morning. The people, the other chaperone people going on the trip were like, yeah, that's, no, you're not gonna be that tired driving that late at night with all our kids
So
in
we're
your
gonna stay
hands.
another time?
Oh, you do it all the time.
And so they asked if
That's
we would look into doing an extra night.
even Lydia.
So,
That's always, every time we do that, someone
We're going to-
Yeah, every time we do that.
this is
something-
true. But
Like
the
somebody broke
guys,
a wall
the guy's
right here?
emailing me tomorrow, like I've already talked to him or whatever, he's gonna email me the price tomorrow, so it looks like we might be staying an extra night, so that'd say, we were coming back on, I think it's the 13th, like, we're leaving the 12th, we would've been back on the 13th, cause it would've been early in the morning,
Would that be a
we'll
Friday or
still be
Saturday?
back on the 13th. So like, that's not changing, even staying the extra night, we'll be back on the 13th, it'll
So,
just be later in the
what
day
are-
when we get back.
When are we
So
even
we're
leaving?
leaving at 12,
Like,
coming back on.
We are going to leave, and I'll announce all this later on,
What was it? What
but
was the conference?
this is why you never know anything.
I did listen.
So, we're not gonna stay the night at the church the night before like we normally do. What we're gonna do is leave from here at 5:30 in the morning, which means your parents have to get you here at 5:30 in the morning.
So we're not gonna spend the night.
No. And so if we leave here at 5:30, that will put us there right about 3 o'clock, and registration ends at 4. So that gives us an hour to be late or have a blowout or something like that.
So how long does it actually take to get there?
It takes, we're going to
So,
Florida.
but not staying here the night before, just, you know, cause your parent, what I said was a lot of our guys are in band anyway, and their parents you know, come pick them up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when they come back from Disney World, or they take them at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to go, so like it ain't that big of a deal for most folks.
Shouldn't be.
Just get up and take them 5:30. Okay, so that's that. We're in Revelation chapter 12.
Why not go see it?
Revelation chapter 12.
Sorry guys, that's right behind Genesis.
Totally. Shut up. Bro, when we get to Florida and be like a ghost town.
So that's the only problem with recording is I have to think about some of my
Responses.
comments before I say them.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking about that. James got a filter now.
Yeah, my cousin though.
They do the best church service we've ever had.
It won't. It won't be.
It really won't.
I will choke you on the recording.
Actually, I think YouTube will take that down for you.
And
edit it out.
Yeah.
You can edit it. We can edit it.
I
As long as it's not,
just-
are you live streaming? You can edit it. Okay, well then you can edit stuff.
Yeah, my cousin.
I'm aware.
Next thing you know, Rubens just won't be here.
It's just gonna be the same. Everything I say. It's gonna be bang. Do the first video.
Why did you get so
Alright,
quiet?
so in your packet, we're on week 6. We read the first part of that last week at the end. So kind of the idea, this little interlude between the first part and the second part of Revelation, it sets up the players that are behind the scenes. It's kind of what I was telling y'all last week. Most people don't, y'all all know about who's gonna rule in the end. Like, before Jesus comes back, who's gonna be
The beast.
the Antichrist, right? That's, okay. So everybody knows the Antichrist, but there's actually 3 different players that are involved, okay? And that's kind of what we're looking at. We're gonna see that there's this huge spiritual battle taking place all around us all the time that we don't really recognize because it's in the spiritual realm that we don't see.
I never got to do the spiritual thing.
We all wanted to do
So
that.
you're gonna buy it, so I guess.
It was after we did
I said
experience.
y'all had to buy,
I will buy
The book. but nobody ever gave me money.
I have money.
I was waiting on the money. I said, bring $10, I'll buy the book, and nobody.
Please, let's do it. Jamie, can we do it for real?
It's kind of like the devotions on Wednesday night for the guys,
Hey,
the letters
we-
that I asked,
hey,
you know, all
hey,
that
do it.
stuff.
We started
They all go
doing-
together.
Hey.
Y'all did do better, and then we canceled church. We're like, hey, y'all read your devotions, we gotta cancel church. I was so blown away.
I was just like,
Just canceled the whole thing.
I'm gonna have to redo it.
They still have service, though.
Forgotten.
Alright, so Revelation chapter 12, we're gonna read all the way through chapter 14. So, let's just start, let's read, somebody read verses 1 through 6 is where it splits up, and then somebody read the rest of chapter 12.
A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in labor and agony as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared from heaven. There was a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its head were 7 crowns. Its tail swept away a third of the stars in heaven and hurled them to the earth. And the dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she did give birth, it might devour her child. She gave birth to a son, a male who is going to rule all nations with an iron rod. Her child was caught up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God to be nourished there for 1,260 days.
then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels also fought, but he could not prevail, and there was no place for them in heaven any longer. The great dragon was thrown out, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil and the Satan, the one who deceives the whole world. He was thrown to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, the salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have now come. Because of the accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been thrown down. They conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they did not love their lives to the point of death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you with great fury, because he knows his time is short. When the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, so that she could fly from the serpent's presence to her place in the wilderness, where she was nourished for times and a half. from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a flowing like a river flowing after the woman, to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth helped the woman. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the river, so that the dragon had spewed the river that the dragon had spewed from his mouth. So the dragon was furious with the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep commands of God and hold firmly to the testimony of Jesus.
The dragon stood, you can read.
The dragon stood on the sand of the seas, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. On his horns were 10 crowns, and on his head were 10 blasphemous names. The beast I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and his mouth was like a lion's mouth. The dragon gave the beast his power, his throne, and great authority. One of its head appeared to be fatally wounded, but its fatal wound was healed. The whole earth was amazed and followed the beast. They worshipped the dragon because he gave authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to wage war against it?" The beast was given a mouth to utter boasts and blasphemies. It was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It began to speak blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his dwelling. Those who dwell in heaven, and it is permitted to wage war against the saints, to conquer them. Conquer them. Yeah. It was also given authority over every tribe, people's language, and nation. All those who live on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name was not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slaughtered. If anyone had ears to hear, let him listen. If anyone is to be taken captive, into captivity he goes. If anyone is to be killed with a sword, he will be killed. The cause of endurance and faithfulness from the saints.
Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and compels the earth and those who live on it and worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. It also performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in front of people. It deceives those who live on earth because of the signs that it is permitted to perform. Its presence of the beast, telling those who live on the earth to make an image of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. It was permitted to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could both speak and kills whoever would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. It makes everyone small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one can buy it or sell unless he has the mark. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, because its number of persons, its number is 666.
Then I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him were 144,000 who had his name under his father's name, and his father's name written on their forehead. I heard a sound from heaven like the sound of cascading waters, and like the rumbling of loud thunder. The sound I heard was like harpists playing on their harps. They sang a new song before the throne, and before the 4 living creatures and the elders. But no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. Those are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women since they remain virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from humanity and the first fruits for God and the Lamb. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless.
Then I saw another angel flying high overhead with the eternal gospel to announce the inhabitants of the earth. To every nation, tribe, language, and people, he spoke with a loud voice. Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship the one who has made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water. And a second angel followed, saying, It has fallen. Babylon the Great has fallen. She made all the nations drink the wine of her sexual immorality, which brings wrath. And another, a fourth angel followed them and spoke with a loud voice. If anyone worships the beast in its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink the wine of God's wrath, which is poured full strength into the cup of his anger. He will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the sight of the holy angels and in the sight of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment will go up forever and ever. There is no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and its image or anyone who receives the mark of its name. This calls for those from the saints who keep God's commands and their faith in Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on." Says, "Yes," says the Spirit, "so they will rest from their labors since their works follow them." Then I looked, and there was a white cloud, and one like the Son of Man was seated on the cloud with a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple, crying out in a loud voice to the one who was seated on the cloud, "Use your sickle and reap, for the time to reap has come, since the harvest of the earth is ripe." So the one seated on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was harvested. Then another angel who also had a sharp sickle came out of the temple in heaven. Yet another angel who had authority over fire came from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to the one who had the sharp sickle, "Use your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of grapes from the vineyard of her, because its grapes have ripened." So the angel swung his sickle at the earth and gathered the grapes from the vineyard of the earth, and he threw them into the great winepress of God's wrath. When the press was trampled outside the city, the blood flowed out of the press up to the horses' bridles for about 180 miles.
Never thought blood like that.
Hmm?
Never thought of blood like that.
Never thought of blood like that?
Yeah, it says God's wrath. It's literally what the sign says. Never thought of it like that.
What do you mean by that?
Then the press was tampered and the blood flowed out of the press of the horses' bridles for about 180 miles. And he's talking about people when he says the vineyard of the earth.
Right.
So I never thought of blood like that, because it said the grapes were supposed to be God's, what does it say?
Says they threw, the harvest went into the winepress of the wrath of God.
Yeah.
So, the winepress, is where they press the grapes or whatever.
It's usually people stomping there.
Well,
Not
180
in the
miles
press.
is roughly the
Yeah,
length
it's
of
just
it.
ruined itself.
So, when they press the grapes, the blood comes out for 1,600 stadia, which is about 184 miles,
Isn't it
give or take.
about the whole length of Israel?
184 miles? I don't know. I can look that up.
Hey Ziri.
No.
Oh, I didn't look today.
No, that's serious.
Alright, here we go. Y'all got your packets open, ready? Let's identify the main players, cause I saw some confusion on some faces when they were talking about the dragon,
I
and
got
then
it.
there was a beast from the sea, and then there was a beast from the earth, and
Babylon.
so I saw kind of the look on some of y'all's faces going, wait, I thought there was just an antichrist, who are all these people, is what I assumed your question was.
I kinda like blanked out because I was reading so much. but-
Right, I understand, just cause other people wouldn't read.
Mm.
Um,
We got rid of our key.
How you gonna be the one to say keep?
I didn't, they were calling
Right,
me
and
outside,
you
calling him out too.
And
Okay,
you
we gotta
laughed
stop.
too when she started backing in.
Okay, so,
I didn't laugh at her.
in the opening vision, in verses 1 through 6,
She did that.
okay, have y'all heard this before? There's a woman clothed with the sun,
Babylon.
with
Yes.
the moon under her feet, and her
Yes, I've
head a
heard this
crown of
before.
12 stars. She was pregnant, crying out in birth,
That, no,
in the agony of giving birth. You said that's Babylon.
No, that wasn't.
I say
That
that's
was
what
not
I'm talking about. I heard her.
I say
the
that's
woman that drew the
literally a
eagle.
woman.
The woman later on.
That's presenting the human race.
I thought that was like literally the woman just like giving
That's
birth to the
motivation.
Antichrist.
Mary.
No, she's
Well,
giving
I-
birth to Jesus, cause he was supposed to rule, right?
Yeah.
So
Said
she
Mary.
represented man in a sense, cause,
It's not
Not
a big
man.
group of people.
but the Israelites.
Think you were just looking them up. Israel, right?
See, I don't know, I don't understand metaphors.
Well, that's why we're doing this, because I had to study this too, okay? Because you don't just wake up and know this stuff.
I'm gonna write it.
So-
I still ain't woke up.
The woman in labor, and this is the question, y'all, so this is what you should write down in your packet.
Is there two stacks or is it just like one?
Yes, sir. Guess you put it in the wrong place.
I'll look in this stack. Alright, so the woman that's in labor is who?
Mary.
Is Israel, good.
That's mine.
It's Israel, it's not Mary, it's Israel. Notice, the reason we know it's Israel, it says a woman clothed with the sun with the moon on her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars, 12 tribes of Israel, right?
There we go.
So, she was pregnant, crying out in birth, and then another sign appeared in heaven, and a great red dragon. Who is the red dragon?
Satan.
Satan, correct. And when you look at when it says he had 7 heads and 10 horns, is on his head were 7 diadems or crowns. I know kind of like, what does that possibly mean? Why does he have 7 heads and all that? And I just tell you, it's probably overthink that one a little bit. It just means he has great power. Okay, that's all that signifies, is how powerful he is. So his tail sweeps down a third of the stars of heaven and casts them to the earth. What is that talking about?
When
He
Satan
took
took
some
away
demons.
Jesus, that's how many of the angels went behind. with
Yeah.
Right,
Satan.
that's right. He took a third of the stars with him, stars being angels. The dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. So the picture I want you to get on this is, she gave a birth to a male child. Obviously, who's that talking about? Jesus, right? But the picture I want you to get, and I think it's something that we don't often think about. I've never really just thought about it before. But you picture Mary in the stable or whatever, and she's giving birth, and like we picture this really cool, serene music playing in the background, like lighting is perfect, everything's great. But like, according to this, Satan was literally standing right there, trying to devour Jesus when he came out. Like, and that's a really weird picture anyway. I'm gonna stop there before I go too far. But,
Already went too far.
yeah, it's really, I like see stuff, I picture stuff, and so,
That's not a thing I wanna picture.
I'll picture that little thing.
No,
from
be
the
quiet.
seats, you know what I'm
Be
talking about?
quiet.
The one that.
all I'm saying is, we're laughing about it. But I mean, really think about the fact that as Mary was giving birth, like Satan was doing everything in his power to keep it from happening. Everything in his power to keep it from happening. So if you look back over time, you think about the fact that, like, Satan might have tried to kill somebody down the line to keep Mary from ever being born, or to keep Joseph from staying with Mary, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, all of these things throughout time, he's been trying to step in to keep it from happening, but he couldn't. Even though he was right there at the birth, if you take this literally for what it says, he couldn't. And all I can figure is, like, in my mind, I see a bunch of angels standing around, and they're like, yeah, what you gonna do, dude? And he's trying to get them, and they're like,
No.
whatever they do.
Who was that read that Max Lucado book? It was literally about this, like,
You know how many people have read Max Lucado books?
About to say.
no, but like they read it to us, like I remember it. And it was about, it was literally about Gabriel documenting this happening and how he took a thing with God's seed to Mary, and then like like literally like while they were on their way on the donkey, they couldn't see this happening, but it was a bunch of the angels standing around the donkey and guarding them. And I forgot who read that to us, but me and Levi.
yeah.
I remember it.
I
do
remember, it always has like, I read something on the internet where it was just talking about whole bunch of angels having a conversation about what they were gonna do, like, the stuff taking place before Jesus, if that makes sense, and before, like, the world was ahead. Like, Gabriel was talking to another angel, and then talking to, you know, Satan or
Right.
whatever, when he was still in heaven, trying to convince him not to, but he did anyway, something like that.
That the, kind of the famous one is this President Darkness, I think is the name of it.
It was like a,
Frank Peretti.
it was in a childhood.
That's a scary question.
It was, because I read it when I was a child.
I don't know.
It was.
If you're interested in this kind of stuff, like spiritual warfare going on around you, that, this present darkness, whatever, this present darkness, I think, this is a really good book, and
It's really
it'll freak you out, man.
It's scary.
Realize how much of spiritual warfare is going on around you. You think about, we talked about last week, 200 million demons are gonna come together during the sixth trumpet. So if there's 200 million of them, they can come together then. Like, how many are there in total? You know, a third of the stars, there's billions of stars, and a third of them came to Earth. So let's just say there's a billion demons.
Like, they're probably just like, you
That's-
actually like turn on like the language.
You count all the stars there are right now,
It's
divided
just
by
like
2.
a sea
That's how
of
many.
everywhere.
That's what I'm saying.
That's hilarious.
And that's what that book, anyway, that's what that book kind of points out, is
I'm talking about him saying.
there's like little demons whispering in people's ears stuff, and then they're saying it out loud, and then this dude's praying, and he realizes what's going on, and the angels are helping him, and anyway, it's pretty cool. Alright, so you have the woman, is who?
Israel.
Those are,
Alright, the male child is who?
Of Nazareth.
And the dragon, thank you.
Put it on.
Satan.
It's
It's
Josh.
Lowercase s, just,
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve
Oh,
that.
you saw.
he doesn't deserve a capital letter, that's right. Alright, so in chapter 12, verse 1, it said, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars." Now go back to Joseph's dream in Genesis 37, verse 9. Requires you to turn your Bible. Turn the pages, not your Bible itself. I mean,
Oh, Genesis 37, what verse?
37, verse 9.
I don't know.
Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. He looked and said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He told his father and brothers, and his brother rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this that you have had?" He said, am I and your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you?"
That's good. Alright, so the sign that appears in heaven is the sun, the moon is under her feet, and on her head's a crown of 12 stars. The dream that Joseph had
It was a crown of 11 stars.
was that the sun,
Yeah.
the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him, which would make 12 stars total. Okay, so is that, you see the correlation between the two? Okay, so this is,
Because he was like a descendant. Well,
right. What I'm wanting to point out to you guys is that, like, when you're studying the Bible and you don't understand something, the Bible answers itself. And so you're looking at this and you're like, what crap is this talking about with these 12 stars and all this stuff? Well, you can cross-reference it and go back and look in, for instance, Genesis and go, oh, okay, so that's what it's talking about, the 12 tribes of Israel. And then you understand that it represents Israel. Does that make sense, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to, we can do the same thing for the male child. You can look in Psalm 2:9. And this is just one, there's obviously more than one, but can somebody read that when you get there?
Says Psalm 12.
2, verse 9.
"You will break them with an iron scepter, and you will shatter them like pottery."
And then you doing that earlier.
Yeah, what I'm actually trying to read. I'm looking for
Alright,
it.
so
Kelowna Asa.
the male child in verse 5, 'She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. She will break them with an iron scepter, and you will shatter them like pottery.'" So this is the male child. And verse 6, "He will break them with an iron scepter, and you will shatter them like pottery." So this is the male child. And verse 7, "She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. All right, and what did it say in Psalm 2:9? You shall break them with a
Iron scepter.
rod of iron, right? So, you still understand the correlation in Psalm 2 and 9 is talking about Jesus. So obviously, who is this talking about? Jesus, right. And then the great red dragon, you can, wait, I mean, we know who that is. Agreed?
And it also says that he was the
So I agree with John here.
That what?
It says the number, but
And
everybody
it says he
associates
said-
it with hell, so.
We're gonna get to the number shortly.
The numbers are not in there.
It's pretty interesting. Some Bibles, some manuscripts actually translate it as 616, not 666. So, like, nobody actually knows. 66 might not even be a number.
Might just be plain old 9, you never
It
know.
might just be the area code for hell.
Right.
Wow.
You know, that's why that's not an area
Code
code right now.
666.
That's literally,
I think 612, I think is somewhere.
Alright, well, here we go. So,
Six-
the next question on your page.
Can't be far from Mississippi.
Turn the page.
666.
So we got 3 of the main players identified, and y'all have only got 20 minutes left, and we're on question number 2.
Great. You stole my pen. You have 3 pens, Rebecca?
I dropped it instead of
No.
what I wanted.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay, we got 20 minutes.
No, I was gonna do this to my
What
students.
happened? Oh, that was my fault.
Body and
We got
light.
20 minutes.
You know, I think I did like this camera thing.
So,
Yeah.
it says in 12:1-6, there's a conflict deeper than the one between God's people and Satan. And that's the conflict between Satan and Christ. Satan seeks to destroy Jesus, and we'll look at that in a second. According to Revelation 12:5, what is the outcome of the conflict and who wins? So, what you're looking at here, guys, is Satan is trying to destroy Jesus, of course. But, as we read on, we find that there's a war in heaven. Michael and his angels are fighting against the dragon. The dragon and the angels fight back. So you've got this huge war that takes place in heaven. And I take it, when do y'all think this was?
way back.
Now.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the one.
Right,
Yeah, wait,
so this is way back, so there's already been like this great cosmic battle between Satan and the angels. And Satan lost. And when he lost, what happened to him?
You got
Got
cast out.
cast out.
He got cast out, thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And a lot of times people say that, Satan's in hell, and like I hear people praying that all the time. Satan, we bind you to hell where you belong and all this stuff.
Well, he's never been
Like,
there.
okay, bro,
Say
he's
something.
never been there. Like,
Yeah.
he's never been there.
It's like buying a house.
There's 4 angels that are bound up at, what was it, the Euphrates, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, these guys have been somewhere, but they weren't even in hell. These demons are not in hell. Satan is not in hell. Where are they? They're here. Exactly. They're here, around, everywhere, depending on how many of them there are. Who knows? But look at Matthew 2:16-18 real quick. Talking about this.
2:16-18. Since I don't want to listen.
That would require you to close your mouth and open your ears.
Then Herod, when he realized that he had been outwitted by the wise men, flew into a rage. He gave orders to massacre all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were under 2 years old, or 2 years old and younger. In keeping with the time he had learned from the wise men, and what was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping the great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be consoled because they are no more.
So, when we read this, y'all, if we're honest with each other, when we read this story, we're like, oh, Herod was mad, and, the wise men tricked him, and so.
Now we can see that was partially,
It was not partially.
It was 100%.
It was 100% Satan's plan. So Satan, like, y'all gotta understand this, okay? People are like, oh, the devil's just messing with me. Nah, bro, that dude is worried about more important people than you, okay?
Man,
So Satan,
people.
is with Herod at this time. That's not one of his demons, that's Satan himself is with Herod. He finds out and Satan's like, hey, you need to kill all the male children 2 years and under. Okay? Because what Satan knows, if he does that Jesus will be one of the ones killed. Okay? So this, like, all throughout history, all throughout the Bible, when you read this, what you have to understand is there's a whole nother world of crap going on out there that we never see and we never understand. I don't know to what extent it is because I can't see it and I can't understand it.
I don't wanna see it.
But what I do know is that you've got these folks going around, Satan, demons, all this stuff, angels, whatever, all of it, and they are constantly trying to take God's plan and move it off the path it's going. But what they don't want is for Jesus to win in the end. Because Satan's really smart, okay? Like, he's read the end of the book. He knows he's gonna lose. And so he's two things on his mind. One, he's gonna do whatever he can to not lose. So if I can derail God's plan, maybe I won't really lose in the end. And two, the other thing he's doing is he's mad that he's gonna lose. And so he's trying to take as many people as he can with him. Because he's mad about it, okay? So all throughout history, what you've got is if you start reading the Bible from that viewpoint, what you start realizing is like, man, he's been working. He's been real active in working. Okay? Trying to keep Jesus from coming, trying to keep Jesus from...
I feel pardon.
Judge,
He's been good.
you guys was crazy.
What?
Not teach.
Dude, just be quiet.
Hey, bro.
this, or...
We're gonna edit that out.
Okay, so, the last question is, what's the outcome of the whole conflict?
Same.
Who wins?
Jesus.
Jesus is gonna win.
Always.
He's always gonna.
He died on the cross, which Satan was so happy about. Satan puts all these soldiers at the tomb to make sure Jesus can't rise again, but he does anyway.
Because he knew he was going to. Because he knew he was going to.
Right. So he rises again anyway, and then we know that at the end he's gonna come back and he's gonna rule for all of eternity.
Think about
I have
Satan
a
just
question.
I thought you
walking,
were gonna rule for like.
I have a
walking on your
question.
street.
I have
No,
I have a question.
Think about it.
So,
Think about
like,
it.
is Satan in control over authority of the other angels or no?
Over his?
Yes.
Yes.
Then why didn't he just put them at the gate instead of some dinkies?
Cause they couldn't have touched
Well,
Jesus.
he probably did through them.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Think,
Or he could have been there, they could have been there with him.
Which could be why the soldiers didn't.
think
know
of the
that.
disappointment in Satan's face, like
I
after he
was
put
so
all the
mad,
soldiers
like-
there at the tomb, he was like, Jesus is dead, my job is done.
Back
And then
grab him.
Jesus rose again, just walked out the
I
tomb.
mean, if I had to guess, he was probably there himself.
That's the best thing they've been like.
I would've been like, oh yeah, one of the things made in Satan's life, I promise you.
It's like to
Well,
wait.
you could say that, but
I'm
he
not
doesn't have
gonna
that
try
one.
to downplay
That's
these,
true.
this
Oh,
type of
yeah.
things out.
There's no
I'm talking
time to-
about.
I don't know, but he
Just
wanted
talking
you
on it
dead.
fake,
He
so
wanted
it
you
can't-
dead.
I feel like
If
if they have this many, like,
I don't know, man.
souls per se, or
Jesus
like,
went,
there's
he
one
died,
called
he came back.
No, he was-
demons or whatever, how come
I think
they just like are nothing? Like, do you get what I mean? Like, they're not just possessing people and doing it all themselves, they're just like, they have to whisper. Like, they can't fully,
I don't know.
like, they can,
Personally.
but they're
I
not.
saw Passion of the Christ,
No,
you ever seen
what I
that
mean?
movie?
They can what?
Snake comes
They
out
can
of dude's
possess
nose,
people,
and it's like
but
a real
it's
nose,
like
it's like a
they're
real
not.
snake comes
They
out,
are.
the actual actor's name, so, like, that is not CGI.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
I
a-
know
there's
they
a
are,
thing
but
where
it's
there's
like
like
The
a
nose,
one
and
of
make
them.
the snake come out of his nose, and then the dude.
Alright, so you got, let me explain this real quick, and then we'll move on. You've got two different things, you've got possession and oppression. So, possession is when, like, you not saved, ain't nothing going on in there, no Jesus, nothing, and a demon would actually come and like, take up residence inside of you, like we see in the Bible. And then you've got oppression, where there's just a demon that's almost like,
He's on your shoulder.
I think, yeah, the best way to explain it would be like he is taking his talents and like, and he's just on your shoulder, like, go kill yourself, be depressed, things like that. He's just constantly putting stuff in your head and telling you to do this, do that, yell at your parents, go kill your parents, do things like this. And so but at that point, the oppression is like, you can be like, hey man, get away from me in Jesus' name, and it'll leave. But when you're possessed,
Yeah, baby.
like, that's when other folks gonna have to come in and pray and fast
'Cause you ain't
to
saying
help you out.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to explain it.
I mean, I understand
So, let's move to the next question. It says, Revelation 12:5 gives y'all have the paper, you should look at it and read it. There's a broad brush overview of Jesus' victory over Satan, moving immediately from his birth to his resurrection and ascension to God's heavenly throne. In 7 through 12, we're granted another perspective on the conflict between Jesus and Satan, with more details filled in. The loud voice in verse 10 announces God's victory and Satan's defeat, noting that Satan is described as the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them day and night before our God. How did Jesus' death, resurrection, and ascension defeat Satan's accusations of believers before God? Now, that's a tough question, so let me just real quick explain. When it says he's the accuser of the brethren, it means that literally he stands before God day and night saying, you know, that guy's no good, he's got to come with me. That guy just did this. Look at what Rivers just
Kinda
did.
like what
He just cussed somebody out, man. He's not a follower. He's not a believer. You need to condemn him, send him to hell, right? So that's what he's doing day and night before God. But he doesn't win.
So it's kinda like the conversation you have with Jesus, like, Job type of.
Correct.
Still here.
And so the question is, how did Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension defeat that accusation of believers before God?
Because he covered it. So it's not about the fact that he did this when Jesus says he said that he covered it, and Jesus didn't do anything wrong, so you can't accuse him.
Be like that dream that Big John had, the one where like his whole family was like dishing him, and he was in the big arena, and Jesus was walking into his mind and took him.
Let's go and read it.
I've never heard
Like
that.
a-
So-
He had a whole sermon about it.
Verse
sermon
11.
about it.
Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves.
Dang, that
It's
was
recorded.
Think too.
In verse 11,
That was
all right, here we go. In verse 11, it says, they've conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Okay? So, the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down. He's not in heaven anymore accusing you before God. Because before it was sacrificing, right? It's all, look what they just did. They didn't sacrifice him or whatever. And so now, we have conquered Satan, not because you did anything special.
because Jesus is standing in our corner.
You conquered him because of the blood of the Lamb. Period, the end. Okay? Period, the end. So through Jesus, we have victory. Revelation 12:11, what we just read, describes Christians who conquer the devil even though he kills them. And that's talking about people that have been martyred for their faith, of course. In what sense do believers conquer Satan? Do they look to the world like conquerors?
Well,
Ah.
they
No, we
look to
don't.
the
No,
world
we
like
really
conquerors
don't look like
because the world
conquerors.
usually looks down on
Let's
us.
get everybody.
I think
They conquer
We
Satan
all ran
in the
from
sense
Washington.
of like
I
having
did
faith in
run.
God and not letting
You got up there.
there's like
Of
not
course.
being influenced by the fact that he's coming at them and all sorts
like
of
this made me think of John the Baptist in all different ways. Everybody saw him as crazy. Like he was literally telling people day in and like day out that they were gonna die and rot in their sin if they didn't turn to Jesus. That he told them that there was a Messiah coming, and he looked crazy to the point where people would shrug it off and laugh at him, and they would probably kill him. Like if somebody in our day and age were to go about the world thinking about all the people that are gonna die and probably end up in hell, and start preaching about it and telling them and warning them, we would get arrested or killed or worse, because to the world we do look like a loser. But
Or
to
like-
Satan, that's the worst thing that we could do.
Yeah, John was to the point where if somebody like probably came up to him offering him some food, he'd probably look at him and be like, "Do you know you're a sinner because you're going to die?" And then he would be like, "Why are you trying to say that? I'm trying to help you." And he wouldn't care about that. He'd care more about the fact that getting Jesus' message across than what he needed at the time, because at the end of the day, he was going to die and need Jesus. So he could starve, he could lose everything. That doesn't matter because like he's thinking about his eternal.
So they conquered him
They brought
And
his
the
head
way we
to
could
some
conquer
girl
Jesus,
right
it could just be simply because we can go speak the word of God, and if someone accepts it, they're in God's hands, and Satan can't necessarily get to them. And that could be a conquerment over, because that's what people usually.
So we're
do.
talking specifically about martyrs.
So, okay, so like the disciples, for instance, they didn't back down to the fact of the law when they said, hey, if you go and tell people about Jesus, if you gather to me with like your believers or anything, if you try and save people, if you go preaching on the street, people will kill you in horrible ways. It got to the point where people were being skinned alive and freaking boiled alive and things like that. But even going through all the torture and all the pain, they would probably still be sitting there,
Still follow Jesus.
chained up, talking to the guards about, hey, you can still be saved.
Yeah, you guys.
So they defeated Satan through following Christ
In the worst.
unto death,
Yes.
right? So look back in chapter 8 of Revelation real quick. Because here it is, right here, Revelation chapter 8. Chapter 8.
And like Pilate felt bad after Jesus was crucified, and like a lot of Roman officials were like, yeah, that's gotta be us.
I think he knew he screwed up.
Yeah.
He said,
That's
Well,
what
that happens.
happens.
And that happens every time someone gets martyred. I mean, that could still strike up if someone believes.
I always wondered
What?
if
What?
like this, like the time where it's like the Jews Herald or whatever, like when he washed his hands, he was washing himself with like Jesus and like knowing that he died.
Maybe, I'm
That's
guessing
what
it could be
Pilate said he
1
did, but-
through
That's what I thought it was, but I don't know. I watched the Jesus Passion of the Christ or whatever. That confused me.
Alright, so in chapter 8, here's what I wanted to point out to you. This is right before the 7 trumpets are going to sound. In verse 1, then the Lamb opened the 7th seal. There was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. Another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar before the throne. Now pay attention. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints rose before God from the hand of the angel. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, threw it on the earth, and there were peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and earthquake. And then they blew the trumpets. So who set off the trumpet blast?
The prayers
The
of the
prayers and
angels.
the
The martyrs.
Oh, that's cool.
So God's judgment comes, in this instance, through
The martyrs.
the prayers of the martyrs.
Whoever persecutes you will persecute me. That sounds great.
Okay? So how did they defeat Satan? Well, first, they followed Christ to the point of death. But second, literally, they helped set off God's judgment, eternal judgment on Satan. Okay? So that's pretty deep stuff. Alright, we'll do one more question, then we'll stop for today. Which is okay, because there's actually only 2 more. Maybe we'll finish that one. Alright, in chapter 12, verse 12, it says, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devils come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. How would that encourage Christians suffering the fierce attacks of Satan? And does the dragon's anger show that he is winning or losing? Okay.
Losing, and you know,
Obviously, it shows he's losing.
and it encourages Christians by saying that he's already lost, he's going to lose, but 100% guaranteed. All you have to do now is follow me, and let's get to as many people as you can so they can be saved. Because you're going to be taken care of at the end of the day, he's going to lose. So have faith in what I'm telling you.
And I think too, part of it would be the fact that it said he knew his time was short. Because he knows that his time is short, is what it says specifically. And so I think that's part of it. Like, as a Christian, you can look at that and go, well, his rule and reign and stuff is about to end.
Bert said to let you know, John wants to start right at 11, so you've got 5 minutes.
And you're on YouTube recorded telling us that.
Herbert, my bad.
That's all right. Pervert.
They said
Pervert.
And they're not social distanced enough.
Pervert.
What?
We're trying to get segregation, that's why. Keisha.
Yeah, you can't.
You see that?
Why don't you get on the other one?
So,
I got that.
Alright, collect my train of thought now. Yep,
Good thing we know how
so Satan's time is short, and as a believer, our reign is eternal with Christ, right? And we know that. And so it would give us encouragement to know that, yeah, we're gonna be persecuted here for a short amount of time, but man, we're gonna live with him for forever.
And that's even if we die, we're just gonna go with him.
Right, and that's the best news ever. The next part, the last part, we are gonna have to do next time, because it gets into the 666, and we jump back and forth from Daniel to Revelation and stuff, and look at that. People freak out about the number 666. It's really interesting. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can look up the word, I'm gonna spell it for you, is Gematria. Gematria. Anyway, so the way this works is like each letter is assigned a number, and then it adds up. So if you took a certain word and added it up, it would equal a particular number.
So what
Make
does the
sense?
word itself mean?
Okay, you just had to look it up. I've looked it up to an extent, and it's like it's a system. It doesn't mean it's a system.
Oh, I see.
Alright, so numeric system. Alright, so.
Like a code type thing? Yeah, it's a code.
No, it's a number system, not a code.
But it has,
It's not a code, it's a number system.
it has numbers, it has
Okay.
numbers associated with it?
So, yes, but it's not a code, it's not like a secret code,
Not gonna-
okay? So the way it would work is like, if you put in certain words, it will tell you, and they're different though. Anyway, when you look it up, they're different. You can type in a word and it'll give you its numeric value.
Oh.
That's what you're finding out, is the word's numeric value.
So wait, what's the number?
Anyway.
What's the word for?
It
When you
says-
put in the word
The word.
to the actual one, not all the different ones online, but when you put in the word beast, it adds up to 666, some people say. When you put in the word Nero Caesar, it adds up to 666.
Yeah.
And so, like, again, 666 being the mark of the beast, that might be a mark that literally says beast.